Alrighty, and take 5. Just kidding, or am I? My name is Ashley Delahanty, and today I'm going to be talking about the beauty industry for my Women's Studies course at CSU in Fort Collins. And basically what my vlog is going to be about is discussing the difference in women throughout the ages, if you will, and how beauty has kind of conformed and morphed its way into what it is today. With that being said, looking back at especially the women's suffrage movement, which is where our class has been kind of based around, because that was the beginning of when women wanted to express their free act of speech and wanting to get the right to vote. And with all that being said, those women at that point in time, very conservative, very modest. They were the typical everyday stay-at-home mom. The clothes were very bland, nothing very enthusiastic about their personality. It was more of a practical yet sustainable way of living, where you just, everything from your neck to your ankles was covered, and your hair was up, out of the way. The only time your hair was down was either maybe done up for a special occasion or at an intimate moment in time, if you will. But looking more, fast forwarding through that and understanding that at that time, makeup or beauty itself was more just emphasized for the everyday American white woman. At that point in time, Black women or women of color were not very accepted in the beauty industry. They weren't really considered to be qualified as beauty. In fact, in society at that point in time, Black women were either just seen as ugly or fat, or they were just very much, their body type and skin color was not somehow flattering to people at that point in time. And with that being said, as women then after were able to get the right to vote and they began to start working a little bit more, granted, women were still just being that domestic role of just doing a job in a sense to make money, but it wasn't as impactful or empowering of what a man's role was in a company or a large corporation, if you will. So along that point in time, this idea of the flapper came along. This idea of the flapper was more so of a woman being voluptuous, having curves, and her skin was showing, higher skirt lines, legs were able to be free and be seen, as well as a lower neckline, and hair was shorter or was either up, done up, whatever it may be. But the idea of the shorter hair was to kind of lead on this idea of a male figure to gain more respect for a female, as well as having the shorter skirts allowed women to have free range of their legs and be able to move and run and do things that would probably be seen as out of the ordinary for a typical domestic American white woman. Granted, people of color were not very accepted around that point in time in the beauty industry for this flapper role as well. But the idea of Marilyn Monroe, of course, came along, and she was this sexual, very voluptuous, curvy woman that was a true sign of beauty, especially in our generation. We can look back at her as an icon, as the changing point of this modesty going wild, if you will. And with that being said, this idea of the flapper kind of led about the idea of women's intuition and fashion and beauty in the 60s and 70s, because there was more of an art to it. There's more of a color, where in a way people of color could express how they were feeling through their personality and their clothes, and they had that right, if you will, to do so. And with that being said, beauty, yes, of course, was more free-ranging in a way for women to use products, but it wasn't as adaptable for a Black woman than it would be for a white woman, considering there weren't products to meet colored skin tones quite yet. And with that being said, when we look into the future, going fast forwarding to like the early 2000s, that is where white and Black women were able to embrace this side of beauty. There were powders. Granted, back in that time, I probably would not have enjoyed mixing powder and liquid, which is one of the research videos I watched. through learning about beauty in the industry, how women had to mix shades together to get the right shade. I'm glad that we do not have to do that, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But this idea of having different skin tones and beauty companies to be more adaptable to that, to the average working woman, if you will, at that point in time, then whether she was black or white, she was a working woman. And to find the need and to fill it, basically. So then, with that being said, looking more so in the marketing and advertising aspect, we have the internet, we have radio, television, everything media-wise to do whatever advertisement companies needed to do. And with this being said, granted, the main entrepreneurial woman was still seen as a white American woman. And even more so at this point in time, we could see that it wasn't all about the curves and having the large breasts or the big bottom. It was more so of her just being thin and her being petite. And this idea of her selling this product, and the way she could contort and move her body was because she was petite, because she was skinny. And in a way, it was very kind of provocative in some cases, whatever they had to endorse. But it was more along so to just be intriguing to the eye, to captivate the viewer's eye by her body. And with that being said, fast forwarding to this day and age, we can actually see how companies are adapting to that racial discrimination, especially in the beauty industry. And yes, we do have, we can see how freedom of speech, women's right to vote, all these different laws, if you will, and amendments that we've had that now have been impacted and can be used towards women. There's more of this idea to go even deeper with that, of how can we embrace the everyday woman and empower her just as we would for an everyday male. And so some of the companies in the beauty industry, I just am very excited to see and hear about. One is being Fenty by Rihanna, and she's a singer, if you did not know, but she's pretty famous. She actually came out with her own makeup line. And for me, being a tomboy, didn't really get into makeup till like my junior year of high school. It was very interesting to see the vast diversity from makeup that I saw in middle school to where it is now. And so the big thing with Fenty by Rihanna, her makeup line actually has over 200 different foundation shades with the matching concealer. And in the makeup world, that is revolutionary, because no other makeup brand line has ever had that before. And to me, I have so much compassion for Rihanna, for her to just being like, come on guys, get it together, for her to just take the time to go, not necessarily go out of her way, but she was kind of making a statement like, this needs to be fixed, this needs to be solved. Because in the past, you would be treating, or women for makeup and in the beauty industry would be seen as ivory, pale, light beige. But now you have women of dark beige, bronze, and ebony, like these deep shades that were not concocted later in history, but now they are of a resource and we can make them now, which is super exciting. And so with all that being said, then we also have Sephora. Now, Sephora is one of the first makeup brands that, yes, followed in the Fenty's footsteps of making a large foundation and concealer range for different skin colors, but also the fact of their diversity for their commercial. For Sephora itself, for hiring, their campaign, they actually have women of all different skin tone, of all different hair color, and again, of all different gender. So you have, if you will, the everyday white woman, everyday black woman, gay, as well as bisexual. Anything you could picture in a human being of what you want to be and how you want to be seen. Sephora wants to empower you and wants you to embrace that of yourself, which is really empowering and revolutionary to see in the marketing and advertising world, that was even thought of, that was even provoked by a makeup company, a makeup brand. And by me saying this is revolutionary, it's more along so the fact that these makeup brands like Fenty and Sephora, even Too Faced, have impacted these different lines to empower the colored woman, because other companies like Clinique and Tarte, I was reading in a Huffington Post article that most of these other companies were controlled by highly powered white male figures that did not want to, let alone embrace a woman of a darker skin tone, but let alone different people of different ethnicities and genders. And so it's really interesting to see how much it has changed, like a complete 180 from beauty back in the 1940s and 50s to 2019. And with all this being said, the fact that these companies coming out with these different shade ranges, it still is a drastic change in the media world to have a Black model promoting a product, to have a colored woman promoting anything of a different sort, whether it could be a burger, a perfume, or a makeup line. It is still something that is struggling to make it out there into the marketing world, which is honestly really sad to see. But understanding these different things of the fact that back in the past, Black women were seen as fat and ugly, if you will, and white women were only seen more as the this idea of being kind of you could be skinny or busty, but as long as you were modest and fair and covered up, you were good. But then later on in years, you have women showing more skin and being more curvy and being more out there and trying to be active in a male role was completely 180 at that point in time. And even more so in today's age, to having the idea of the flapper and the activist woman of the 1960s and 70s, then in today's era, we have women who are curvy, who are skinny, who are trying to embrace their skin and their beauty marks. That is what beauty has transformed into. The beauty industry is trying to empower women to not just cover up flaws, but to emphasize and accentuate their flaws and the things that they like about themselves, and to feel empowered and confident when they go out into the everyday day of life and their everyday work and job, that they can feel like they can do whatever they set their mind to, which is really reassuring to see that change in marketing, that change in involvement of influencers from back when I was in middle school. I was probably 10, 11, and now I'm 21, and it's just completely different of how makeup is seen and viewed as. It's an art form. It's a way to express yourself than just disguising yourself, as I like to say. And so understanding the difference between body types, body image, makeup itself, and clothing, we can see that the beauty industry has changed a whole lot, and it sets aside that privileged white woman and allows this idea of equality to be kind of emphasized and really trying to be pushed out there for the colored woman and for the white woman, and to not just discriminate to just females, but to also different genders as well, for them to be able to experience and enjoy makeup and express themselves through this art form, because essentially the beauty in today's world is an art form. It's a way to express yourself. And understanding this aspect of beauty, I think, has really helped change the way society sees it, that it's not just, like I said, a cover-up and disguising yourself. It's more of an accentuating of your true self. And so with all that being said, I hope that makes sense. Again, just talking about the different ways the woman was seen as, versus a skinny, curvy to a everyday working woman of different colors and races. And the fact that there are organizations out there such as Fenty and Sephora, these big brand beauty makeup lines that are trying to make a difference in everyday life for a woman, as well as the marketing and advertising world, to change the way we as consumers can view products, not just from a everyday American white skinny woman, if you will, on our screens. And then understanding that fact that because of these different organizations having stuff in place, but also understanding that we can take a hold of this and we can just really run with it. So I'm really excited to see where beauty companies, beauty lines go with this in the beauty world, clothing lines, fashion designers, how they are going to really start integrating color of different skins, different people, different types of people, different genders of people, to really accentuate this art form of beauty and makeup and fashion, and really just giving it a whole new definition than just being a product line, if you will, of makeup for beauty. With that being said, thank you for listening. I hope that all made sense, and I hope you enjoyed and maybe learned a couple things along the way. Maybe it helped opened your mind to beauty and not just seeing it as a product line, but more of a art form, if you will. And if you have any questions, again, you can just message me. Any comments are great as well. I will have a couple videos of the research that I found to cover a couple of the bullet points I had mentioned in my video, but I thank you so much and have a great day.